In this episode, I'm going to be speaking with Rhea Wessel, who is a former journalist and is a consultant now. She's going to share with you several things. Number one, she's going to talk about why it's so important for you to be creating content. This whole idea of externalization of knowledge, which you might not have heard before, but it's a very interesting take on why it is we have so much trouble thinking about what we know. She even gives you a mind map at the end to talk about. And also the importance of hooking your audience. You know, I speak with a lot of salespeople and companies who want to shoot video. The problem is the hook is not there. So she'll talk about exactly how to do that. Here's my conversation with Rhea Wessel. We're speaking today with Rhea Wessel, as I said in the front. And Ray, welcome to the Bill Caskey podcast.
Thank you, Bill. Pleasure to be here.
As I said in the front, I get a lot of emails from people who are pitching me why they should be on the podcast. And yours came kind of rose to the top because of the topic. And you founded a company called the Institute for Thought Leadership.com. There's also a book that you've written called Write Like a Thought Leader. And I really believe, as I said to you in some of the pre-show, I really believe that we as sales professionals, VPs of sales, presidents of companies, and that's who this is for, really need to get better at this. And so I wanted to have you on. I wanted you to walk through why this is important for us to improve our skills in whether it's writing or video production or just being a thought leader from a mindset standpoint. Why don't you walk through a little bit of that, maybe how you got your start, and bring us along, and then I'll have some other questions.
Okay, Bill, thank you. So my name is Rhea Wessel, and I'm a writer, a journalist, former journalist. And as I was working along for many, many years, working for companies, for instance, consulting practices, I would be asked to edit the articles of teams of people who had written an article to talk about their expertise in supply chain or procurement or fintech or what have you. And I would get these articles, and over again, I would see the exact same mistakes, that people were not able to externalize their knowledge in a way to make it useful, and to use a 1,000 word article to start a conversation with a client. And so I would have to go, I would get the text, be asked to edit it, and then I'd have to go on a call with the 5 experts who wrote it from the company and say, really great stuff in here, but know it. Oh, that's fascinating. Kick this out, flip that up there, frame it differently, and you've got a fantastic article.
Don't bury the lead, right?
Don't bury the lead.
It's an old saying if you've been in the newspaper business, but we do it all the time.
Yes, and subject matter experts are good at what their subject matter is, not necessarily at framing the article. And so that's how I came to my work. Is basically I had to reverse engineer my journalistic training and find a model so I could teach this type of thinking and story framing to subject matter experts. And that's the basis of what we do.
Excellent. Yeah, I think that whole bearing the lead thing, and I always tell people, sometimes people will send me an email and say, hey, can you look at this before I send it? And I'll look at it and I'll read it. I'm like, what are you really trying to say here? And when you ask the question, what are you really trying to say? They will tell you. And I'm like, well, that sounds nothing like what you just wrote. So what are you trying to say is a really good thing. If you're looking at an email and saying, I'm not sure this is good, it probably doesn't answer that question of what are you really trying to say. So let's talk about thought leadership here today. And again, we're with Rhea Wessel. Her book is called Write Like a, I'm sorry, I got it written down, but I can't read my writing. Write Like a Thought Leader. Why is thought leadership important today for sales organizations, sales professionals, business owners? Why is it so vital?
Yes. So thought leadership is standing out in a crowd for what you know and how you communicate it in a useful way to your audience. And there are many, many different providers of the consulting or of the product of the service that you are providing, most likely.
Yeah.
You've got to respond to the needs of your clients with useful information that's not salesy. So you've got to be genuinely educating and externalizing your knowledge so that you build that trust with the reader and they begin to see you and your team as the go-to experts in this area. And it's a lot easier said than done. To do that, you really have to take the body of knowledge and refine and dig deep and find what's new and tease that out and spin it forward, and therefore be leading the conversation about the best way maybe to do a digital transformation or the best way to implement a particular type of software. So one of the big ideas behind my company and what we do is that your experts in the trenches in your company are the ones who have the best ideas because they're talking to their clients, they're implementing the projects, they have them. And if a comms team is trying to get the attention of prospects and new clients, that's a go-between. And probably the good ideas are getting watered down or potentially lost.
Yeah.
So what we do is help sales teams get those great ideas out by actually enabling the subject matter expert to articulate that better and to frame the ideas.
So this is a good point here, because here's what I hear a lot of times is a salesperson who's, let's say they're a high income, high impact business to business. They are a thought leader, even though they may not consider themselves that. And they say, well, I'm going to write an article, then I'm going to send it over to marketing and have them finish it up and put the finishing touches on it. And to me, that's where it all falls apart, because marketing puts the marketing spin on it, and then it's not real anymore. Then it's not authentic. I would rather have a salesperson write a crappy article that speaks from his or her heart than have the marketing person dilute it down to where everybody's got to sign off on. We can't say that there. Am I wrong here? Or how does one get past that? I know it all depends on the company, but we have to get back to the salespeople need to be the content producers and the thought leaders, because they're the ones that are in the field, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it sounds like we're speaking the same language, Bill, definitely. And it's like a disintermediation of the idea, right? So it's very often, it's not that the company does not have the capability, it's that the processes are broken. And even in a large knowledge-based company, let's say like a global consulting company, they may have a large budget, a huge team for thought leadership research, lots of writers, et cetera, et cetera. But in that case, it's often in an ivory tower. And there's not enough feedback to the teams who are talking to the clients and understand the needs and, are seeing the objections when it comes to the sales. And that's why, for instance, we do a program with Harvard alumni. It's called a writing incubator, and it's for the subject matter experts. And in that program, they write an article, actually 3 over 10 weeks. So they're getting the experience of getting their ideas out. And yes, they can have someone polish it, but the goal would be not to add like a salesy spin on top.
Right. So you've talked here a couple of times. We're talking with Rhea Wessel today. You can find out more about Rhea. We'll put it in the show notes. instituteforthoughtleadership.com. You've got some good insight in there on the webpage. You've talked about externalizing knowledge, and I think that's you kind of throw the term around because you know what it means, but explain that and explain why it's so hard to do.
Okay, so externalizing knowledge is digging deep within the well of ideas that you have and pulling them out, but making sure they're lined up to your audience so that they're useful and serve your audience. What makes it so difficult is the nature of experts and the nature of expertise, because experts love detail, love nitty gritty. They're going deeper all the time, and they get lost, and it's beautiful. And their joy is in in the knowledge acquisition or the creativity that they're experiencing there. But in order to use that knowledge, to sell on, then you need to make it useful and make sure that you're framing it in a new way. One example I use often is digital transformations. So I would get these articles that I mentioned at the beginning almost weekly. Your company, digital is here to stay, and your company needs a digital transformation. Like, oh gosh, got that one Friday.
Sounds like a lot. Sounds deep, yeah.
And the point there is that we need the knowledge. We need all the ideas on digital transformations. It's a huge space. It's super important, but you cannot start an article that way. That's not a useful way to frame the article anymore. And it's just difficult because experts typically have an academic pedigree, and they are taught to write in a particular style. Yeah. And it's really can be templatey. And it's not that it can't be understood. And I've also seen it in firms that have a thought leadership program where they provide a template, but the template is actually off. Right. And they think that they've written to and it's not a straitjacket. It's really a template, but a journalistic article, one that's framed in a journalistic way, is going to have a completely different setup, so that there's something. It's a beginning hook, a middle build, and ideally an ending payoff. That's right. From the editor, Sean Coyne. I can't claim that, but I just love it. Beginning hook, middle build, and ending payoff.
Yeah. So that's a framework that we can all use, whether we're shooting video, writing articles, proclaiming and declaring our leadership and expertise. There's got to be a hook up front. Something has to hook. I mean, think about a newspaper. It's a headline or the subhead or the first paragraph. There's always something that kind of gets you into the article. And it's why, National Enquirer sells so many magazines at the counter, because of the hooks, because of the headlines. Man gives birth to alien babies or whatever. And even though we know that's false, we can't help but pick it up. We just can't. It was like, really? Why have I not heard about this? So I love your definition of externalizing knowledge. It's writing from the perspective of your audience rather than from your own perspective, to me.
And it's actually writing to their needs. So what we do, one way to find that in the story framing system that I teach, we actually create a mind map. And at the center of that mind map is one member of your audience and one problem that they face. And it's a problem that you, as the expert, happen to know a lot about.
Yeah.
And so we build that out in all its arms so that you just unpack that problem. And then we create storylines that are headlines that are like solutions to each of those problems. And so it's useful content. And then the hook is set up in a journalistic way so that it teases out something new, right? Because make the mind curious.
So to help people visualize this, you've got a mind map with one audience member. Let's just say it's your ideal client. Mm-hmm. Let's say you're calling on CFOs, and there's one problem. CFOs are frustrated because they can't grow profitability.
Okay.
So then you are brainstorming on a mind map. And again, mind map's not an outline on Google Docs. It's a visual picture where you have spokes coming out from that center point. And you're talking about maybe things like one spoke might be the impact of this problem. One spoke might be what you've tried to do in the past to fix this problem. One spoke might be who have you gone to seek advice that hasn't worked, or whatever those things are. You're just really trying to fill out the entire page so that then you can draw content, headlines, things like that from.
Yes, that is more or less the way it works. Okay. To be more specific, I would frame that problem like, and if you were a participant in a workshop, I do a live story framing demonstration. So let's say that you're selling to these CFOs. So I would interview you. We would get that statement in the middle. It would be CFOs struggle to make profit in XYZ niche market, right? And then where you described like a wider variety of arms for the mind map, there I would just stick to components of the problem. What does that mean? What they have too much compliance regulation. They, I'm just making this up, right? They don't have enough access to the clients. They have broken processes in the company, et cetera. And each of those problems specifically related to the problem statement, that's what you would then frame up as a story.
That's excellent. That's excellent. We're talking with Rhea Wessel. Rhea, I appreciate your time. How does someone find you if they want to learn more about what you do, or maybe purchase the book? Give us some promo.
Great. Yeah. Visit my website, please. Institute for Thought Leadership. Connect with me on LinkedIn. We've got the book, and I'd love to have a call with anyone who's interested in a writing incubator for your firm. So we have a track record on that, doing great, getting thought articles out of your experts quick and easily, making the writing process a lot less painful. So that's what we do.
Yeah, that's perfect, Ray. Well, I appreciate you being on. I think that's one of the challenges that we all have is that, okay, I'm willing to take a risk and to shoot a video or to write, but now what? Where do I begin? And you can't just create it out of thin air. You have to have a process or a framework that helps you get your thoughts out. And I love the mind map, the one problem mind map. I think that's because you probably solve, people that we call on and that are listening, they probably solve several problems, but just take one. Don't try to take all three. Just take one and go deep on the one. You may not even have to worry about the other two or three because you've got content to last you for a year just in that one problem. But if we don't have that framework, then we're kind of stuck.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. So thanks for being here, Ray. We'll talk soon. Institute for ThoughtLeadership.com. You can get a hold of Rhea Wessel, and we'll see you next week on the Bill Caskey Podcast.
Thank you so much, Bill.